Kristen Martinez. I'm the owner of PAX Therapy and Family Services in Whittier, California. Currently, we serve clients all over the state of California and in person at our locations in Whittier, California and Riverside, California. Today, I want to talk about boundaries. It's something that our practice really focuses on, as most of our therapists are systems theory specialists. For me, I've developed my own system of how to figure out what boundaries people need to create and how to get them created and maintained. It sounds simple, but unfortunately, it's really not. Um, but the work can be done, and it doesn't. It's best to be done guided with a professional, but it's nothing that you can't start on your own. I think when you really need to involve a professional is when you start hitting the roadblocks, or any kind of struggle in the process where you're like, I really don't know how to go forward. It would be a great time to reach out to a professional. So in this video, I just want to give you a real brief overview of what my process for determining figuring out boundaries looks like. And it's just the main, you know, piece by piece. So step one for me is identifying and describing in extreme detail your ideal life. Where do you live? What kind of job do you have? What people are around you? More importantly, how in detail are those people treating you? So in this process, I like to break it down into categories of relationships, family, job, community. So break it into those categories and literally grab a journal, grab a pen, and take like a day in the perfect life in each of those categories for you and your ideal self. You can describe what you act like, what you do. You can just, I prefer describing down to the details of what you got up, what kind of slippers did you put on, what kind of coffee did you drink, what, just like all of the little details. What time did you eat lunch? Who made your lunch? Did you make your lunch? What was in your lunch? Was it healthy? Was it chicken? Was it, I don't care what, but a day in your ideal life in each of the categories. Again, so you want to look at, relationship, family, job, community, and describe again in detail what you like. What I like for people to do is to take a week on at each of those topics, so you can see how long this process really takes, and either to do it on each of those the first 4 weeks, and then the following week to review the four ideal lives and focus on one. So out of those four, because you can repeat this process. So out of those four categories, focus on one in particular that you want to move through and take the rest of the process with. So let's say it's your relationship with your partner, or the lack of a relationship. It doesn't really matter. It could be any of them. And now you want to look at that in detail of your current functioning in that area. Describe in detail the best day that you're currently living and the worst day that you're currently living in that area. So, for example, the best the best day in your relationship might be what happened on your anniversary. So, you want to go through it in detail, all of the good that happened, all of the bad that happened that day. Doesn't matter. You want to. This is the purpose of this part of the exercise, is being absolutely as honest as you possibly can. So whatever you feel were the positives and the negatives, just boom, like list them out. And again, you want to repeat that for the worst day of your current life. So, for example, you could have picked a day where you had a giant explosion with whoever your spouse or partner or the non-existent person in your life is, and you want to describe your thoughts, feelings, experiences that day. Again, the exact same. So you want to then combine those two lists into one large list. So this is like the evaluation of your current functioning. Again, this could take 1 week, 2 weeks. It could take some time. With a professional, obviously, I as a professional, and with a professional, you would gauge things in weeks. How many weeks? Or some people meet with their therapist more than one time a week. Whatever your cadence is, that's usually what the time frame is for getting through this. So you want to take the previous work that you did in your relationship, ideal relationship work, and list in your current relationship, current functioning. So literally, get the two lists next to each other. You want to take the current list and start Xing off the current things that are existing that also exist in your ideal relationship. Just boom, boom, mark them off. When you're whatever you're left with, I want you to compare to each other, and then you're gonna make another list. This is a lot of lists. This is really taking like these really very abstract things and making them a little bit more concrete, a little bit more tangible and manageable, especially if it's in written form. So you're gonna take those two lists, kind of combine them. I want, let's say, something that you don't have in the lists in either of them is that somebody notices when you do something for them. So maybe that's something that was missing in your current functioning, and it's something that you want in your ideal relationship. So now we have a jump point for boundary formation. So going forward, that might be, and it could be multiple. Again, this is a very drawn out process. And also, if you, let's say we pick this particular boundary to work on, it also may automatically resolve other boundaries that you have, because sometimes we have a weak boundary in this area functioning, but it really is something that's happening across the board. So you want to be appreciated for or noticed when you do something for someone else. So you want to be appreciated, really. So your boundary that you create around being appreciated or not being appreciated has to be like to make a statement. I want people to say thank you when I do something for them. Narrow it down even more. Try and notice something in your relationship that you do on a regular basis that you feel you're not being appreciated for. So maybe you cook dinner every day and it's kind of just a given. So maybe your statement is, I want to be appreciated when I cook dinner. Beautiful. I love it. Now every good boundary has to have a consequence. So if I am not appreciated, then I will, and you fill in whatever the consequence is. It could be anything. You could decide that you're going to reduce the amount that you cook dinner. You're going to ask your partner to pitch in more for dinner, etc., etc. You can have several ideas of consequences, but pick one. Now, the next phase is implementation, which is, to be honest, this is the hardest part. So setting the boundary, great. The problem comes when your boundary is not going to be respected, because I guarantee right off the bat, you will not set boundaries. They will not be respected, and people will push against them like toddlers. So that requires you to start to enforce the consequence. Again, this is where a lot of codependency issues can come up, a lot of trauma, past trauma issues. This is the area where you really need to be working with a therapist. And to be honest, this is also a place where a lot of therapy jumps off at. So instead of taking that whole first part, a lot of therapists come in and even myself, if I'm in therapy, I'll jump from this point. And I often will, we often forget that we also have to do the front end work of identifying all of this, like what you actually want. So this is a really important part, to have somebody like a therapist guiding you through, getting through the obstacles, guiding you through the obstacles and troubleshooting, setting consequences. Also figuring out what happens when somebody just doesn't respect your consequences, and is that a non-negotiable for you? Are you willing to settle for that? And if you are, again, you have to reevaluate your ideal self and come to terms with what your ideal is may not be something you'll ever have. And if you're willing to settle for that. I don't think that that's a good idea. I think that that's a formula for a lifetime of sadness. And setting boundaries and consequences, and sometimes getting rid of people in our lives, is necessary parts of growth. Because sometimes people enter our lives when we're needy and we're experiencing a lot of codependency. And if they're unwilling to grow with us, then sometimes it's necessary. And a lot of times, people who don't respect our boundaries in one area, usually there's a lot of other areas that they're not respecting our boundaries. So after all of the troubleshooting, we talk about generalizing. Are there other areas, like if you've had successful once you successfully set the boundary, it's identifying also all of the other areas that have been impacted by the successful implementation of this boundary. And once that's done, restart the process. It's very focused work. If you're able to stay focused and not be distracted by other things going on in life, it's absolutely life changing. So this was just a really brief overview of my conceptualization and my theory of how boundaries work and how to set them and how to work through them. I would say maybe takes about 20 to 30 weeks if it's uncomplicated. With complications of trauma or childhood stress, you're looking at maybe a year plus. But again, it's not just one boundary that you're resolving at a time. Oftentimes, you're resolving boundaries across all of the 4 domains that I originally mentioned, which is great. So, if you guys are interested, you could you could comment below. You could reach out to us at our main line, info@paxtherapy.com, or you could call or text us at 714-587-4543. You could work with me. I'll be honest, I don't take any insurance right now because I no longer diagnose clients. I don't think it's helpful. So because of that, I am unable to bill any insurance. But I do have therapists who do take insurance in my practice, but I don't. But if you want to work with me, you can go ahead, send an email to info@paxtherapy.com, and one of our administrators will get back to you if I have availability. Again, if not, I have lots of therapists in the practice who can work with you, who are systems specialists. So feel free to reach out to us.